The crystal vase flew past Emma's head so fast that she felt the wind brush against her cheek. Crash! It exploded against the marble wall behind her, sending 1,000 glittering pieces across the floor like deadly raindrops. Emma stood frozen, her heart hammering in her chest, staring at the beautiful woman in the red dress who had just tried to hurt her. Victoria Blackwood, the most feared woman in the entire mansion, stood there breathing hard, her perfectly painted red lips curved into an angry smile. Her green eyes looked like a cat ready to pounce. Every single servant in the room had backed away into the corners, their faces white with terror. But Emma didn't move. She looked Victoria straight in the eyes and said something nobody had ever dared to say before. "That was expensive. Mr. Blackwood won't be happy." The entire room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Every maid, every butler, every person who worked in that massive mansion held their breath. Because nobody ever talked back to Victoria Blackwood. Victoria's eyes went wide with shock. Then they narrowed dangerously. She took one step forward, her high heels clicking on the marble floor like a predator approaching its prey. "What did you just say to me?" Emma's hands were shaking, but she kept her voice steady. "I said that vase was expensive, and throwing things at people is wrong." For 3 long seconds, Victoria just stared. Her face went from shock to confusion to something that looked almost like curiosity. Then her lips curved into a different kind of smile, one that sent chills down everyone's spines. "You," Victoria whispered, pointing one perfectly manicured finger at Emma, "are either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest. But how did we get here? How did a simple new maid end up standing face to face with the woman everyone feared?" Well, to understand that, we need to go back to where it all began. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. Emma Rodriguez stood outside the biggest house she had ever seen in her entire life. It wasn't just big. It was massive. The Blackwood mansion had more windows than she could count, towers that reached up to the sky, and gardens that seemed to go on forever. Fountains sprayed water high into the air, and the driveway was so long that Emma had walked for 5 whole minutes just to reach the front door. Her small suitcase felt heavy in her hand. Inside was everything she owned in the world. 3 uniforms, 2 pairs of shoes, her mother's old necklace, and a photo of her little brother, Miguel. Miguel. That's why she was here. Her little brother was sick, very sick. He needed medicine that cost more money than Emma could ever imagine. When she saw the job advertisement for a maid position at Blackwood Mansion, offering more money in 1 month than she usually made in 6 months, she knew she had to try. Even though everyone in town had warned her. "Don't go to that house," her neighbor Mrs. Chun had said, shaking her head. "That woman who lives there, Victoria Blackwood, she's terrible to the servants. They say she makes them cry every single day. I heard she fired 3 maids in 1 week," added Mr. Patel from the grocery store. "One of them ran out of the mansion crying so hard she couldn't even speak." But Emma had no choice. Miguel needed her. So here she was, standing at the door of the most feared house in the city, ready to knock. The door opened before she could even lift her hand. A tall woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun looked down at her. She wore a black dress and had the kind of face that looked like it never smiled, ever. "You're late," the woman said coldly. Emma looked at her phone. "But I'm 5 minutes early. Mrs. Blackwood expects her staff to arrive 15 minutes before their scheduled time. You're late. Come in." Emma followed the woman, who introduced herself as Mrs. Thornberry, the head housekeeper, through the front door. Her eyes went wide. The inside of the mansion was even more amazing than the outside. A giant staircase curved up to the 2nd floor like something from a fairy tale. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, sparkling with what looked like 1,000,000 diamonds. The floors were so shiny that Emma could see her reflection in them. Everything was perfect, too perfect, like a museum where you're afraid to touch anything. "These are the rules," Mrs. Thornberry said as they walked through hallway after hallway. Her heels clicked sharply on the marble floor. "Rule number 1. You speak only when spoken to. Rule number 2. You never, ever look Mr. Blackwood directly in the eyes. Rule number 3. You stay out of Mrs. Blackwood's way at all times. Mrs. Blackwood? Emma asked. But I thought Mr. Blackwood wasn't married yet? Mrs. Thornberry's lips got even thinner. He's not. Victoria Blackwood is his fiancée. But everyone calls her Mrs. Blackwood because… She paused, like she was choosing her words very carefully. Because it's safer that way. It makes her happy. They turned a corner and Emma saw other servants rushing around. Every single one of them looked scared. They moved quickly and quietly, like mice trying not to wake up a sleeping cat. Rule number 4, Mrs. Thornberry continued, is the most important one. Never, under any circumstances, contradict or disagree with Victoria Blackwood, not even if she's wrong. Especially not if she's wrong. Do you understand? Emma nodded slowly, though a small part of her wondered what kind of person needed rules like that. Mrs. Thornberry led her to a small room on the 3rd floor. It was simple, just a bed, a dresser, and a tiny window, but it was clean and neat. You'll start work in 1 hour, Mrs. Thornberry said. Put on your uniform, report to the kitchen, and remember, stay out of her way. After Mrs. Thornberry left, Emma sat on the bed and pulled out her phone. She looked at the photo of Miguel, his big brown eyes and his gap-toothed smile. He was only 7 years old, too young to be so sick. I can do this, Emma whispered to the photo. For you, I can do anything. Emma spent her first morning learning her duties from the other maids. There were 12 of them in total, all women, all looking tired and nervous. Just keep your head down, whispered a young maid named Sophie as they dusted the library together. Sophie had blonde hair and looked about Emma's age, maybe 19 or 20. Don't make eye contact. Don't speak unless she asks you a question. And whatever you do, don't mess up. What happens if you mess up? Emma asked. Sophie's hands started shaking so badly that she nearly dropped her duster. Last week, a maid named Jennifer accidentally used the wrong polish on the dining room table. Victoria made her clean every single window in the mansion, all 243 of them in 1 day. Jennifer's hands were bleeding by the end. She quit the next morning. Emma felt her stomach twist. That's horrible. That's Victoria, Sophie said quietly. She's beautiful and rich and engaged to the most powerful man in the city. She can do whatever she wants, and nobody can stop her. What about Mr. Blackwood? Emma asked. Doesn't he do anything? Sophie shook her head. Mr. Blackwood is barely ever here. He travels for business all the time. And when he is here, he's locked in his office working. He doesn't see what Victoria does to us. Or maybe, Sophie's voice dropped even lower. Maybe he just doesn't care. They continued dusting in silence. Emma learned that the library had over 5,000 books, that every single item in the mansion had to be cleaned a certain way, and that Victoria inspected everything, at exactly 2 p.m. every single day. It's like she's looking for reasons to be angry, Sophie explained. She'll run her finger along a bookshelf looking for dust. She'll check the corners of mirrors. She once fired a maid because a painting was tilted by ½ an inch. Emma was starting to understand why everyone was so afraid. At exactly 1:55 p.m., all the servants lined up in the main hallway. Emma stood between Sophie and an older maid named Ruth, who had been working at the mansion for 3 years. Stand up straight, Ruth whispered. Don't fidget. And for the love of all that's holy, don't sneeze or cough. Emma's heart started beating faster. She could hear the click-click-click of high heels coming down the stairs. Then she saw her. Victoria Blackwood was the most beautiful woman Emma had ever seen. She had long black hair that fell in perfect waves down her back, creamy white skin, bright green eyes, and lips painted deep red. She wore a designer dress that probably cost more than Emma's entire house back home. But there was something about her eyes, something cold and sharp, that made Emma's skin prickle. Victoria walked slowly down the line of servants, looking each one up and down like a general inspecting soldiers. Nobody moved. Nobody even seemed to breathe. She stopped in front of Sophie. Your shoes are scuffed. Sophie's face went pale. I am sorry, Mrs. Blackwood. I'll polish them immediately. See that you do. I won't tolerate sloppiness. Victoria moved on. She stopped in front of Ruth and studied her for a long moment. Ruth kept her eyes on the floor. Acceptable, Victoria said finally. Then she came to Emma. Victoria's green eyes looked Emma up and down slowly. Emma remembered the rules: don't look directly at her, don't speak. But something made her glance up, just for a second. Their eyes met. Victoria's eyebrow raised slightly. You're new. Yes, Mrs. Blackwood, Emma said quietly. What's your name? Emma Rodriguez, Mrs. Blackwood. Victoria circled around her slowly, like a shark circling prey. Emma could smell her expensive perfume. Roses and something else, something sharp. Emma Rodriguez, Victoria repeated, as if tasting the name. Tell me, Emma, do you know why people work here despite the challenging conditions? Emma wasn't sure if she should answer, but Victoria was clearly waiting. The pay is very good, Mrs. Blackwood. Exactly. Victoria smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The pay is excellent, which means I expect excellence in return. Do you understand? Yes, Mrs. Blackwood. Good. Victoria started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Emma? That necklace you're wearing, it's against the dress code. Remove it. Emma's hand flew to her throat. Her mother's necklace. A simple silver chain with a tiny cross. It was the only thing she had left of her mom. But Mrs. Blackwood, it's just... Victoria turned back, her eyes flashing. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Every servant went rigid with fear. Did you just but me? Emma's mouth went dry. She could feel Sophie trembling next to her. Ruth had closed her eyes like she couldn't bear to watch. I'm sorry, Mrs. Blackwood. It's my mother's necklace. She passed away. Could I please? I don't care if it belonged to the Queen of England, Victoria said, her voice sharp as glass. The dress code exists for a reason. Everyone follows the same rules. Or do you think you're special? Emma felt her cheeks burn. Every part of her wanted to take off the necklace, to avoid trouble, to keep her job and the money for Miguel. But this was her mother's necklace. The last piece of her mom she had left. No, Mrs. Blackwood, Emma said quietly. I don't think I'm special. But this necklace is special to me. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's face went through several expressions. Surprise, anger, then something Emma couldn't quite read. Nobody had ever said no to her before. You could see it in her eyes. Sophie, Victoria said suddenly, not taking her eyes off Emma. Why yes, Mrs. Blackwood? Sophie stammered. What happens to servants who break the rules? Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. They get written warnings, Mrs. Blackwood. And after 3 warnings? They're terminated. Victoria smiled that cold smile again. Emma Rodriguez, consider this your first warning. Tomorrow I expect that necklace to be gone. Understood. Emma wanted to argue. She wanted to say it wasn't fair. But she thought of Miguel in his hospital bed. And she nodded. Yes, Mrs. Blackwood. Victoria swept away, her heels clicking on the marble. As soon as she was gone, every servant let out the breath they'd been holding. Sophie grabbed Emma's arm. Are you crazy? You almost got fired on your first day. That necklace isn't even visible, Emma said, frustrated. It's hidden under my uniform most of the time. It doesn't matter, Ruth said, shaking her head. Victoria makes the rules, even if they don't make sense. You have to follow them, or you won't last a week here. Emma touched her mother's necklace, feeling the familiar weight of it. Tomorrow she would have to take it off. The thought made her heart hurt, but she had no choice. Or did she? Over the next 2 days, Emma began to see just how cruel Victoria Blackwood really was. On Tuesday morning, Victoria accidentally spilled her coffee on the floor and made a maid named Lisa clean it up with a toothbrush while she watched and criticized every movement. On Tuesday afternoon, she found a tiny spot on a window and made Sophie re-clean every window on the entire second floor, even though Sophie had already cleaned them that morning. On Wednesday, she changed the lunch menu 3 times, making the kitchen staff throw away perfectly good food and start over, just because she changed her mind. But the worst part wasn't the tasks. It was the way Victoria talked to people. "Are you stupid? Or just lazy?" she said to one maid. "My grandmother could clean faster than you, and she's been dead for 10 years, she told another. "I've seen snails move with more purpose," she commented to a third. Emma watched it all and felt anger building inside her like a volcano getting ready to explode. This wasn't right. Nobody deserved to be treated this way. Why doesn't anyone stand up to her? Emma asked Sophie one night as they ate dinner in the servants' kitchen. Sophie looked around nervously, even though they were alone. "Because she's engaged to Alexander Blackwood. He's one of the richest, most powerful men in the country. Victoria can ruin your life with one phone call. She can make sure you never get another job anywhere. People have tried to complain before. They all regretted it. What happened to them?" One girl tried to report Victoria to Mr. Blackwood. The next day, she was accused of stealing jewelry that Victoria probably planted in her room herself. The girl was arrested. Her name was ruined. Nobody would hire her. Emma felt sick. And Mr. Blackwood believed Victoria? He wasn't even here. He was traveling. By the time he got back, it was already done. Sophie picked at her food. "Look, Emma, I know you're angry. We all are. But there's nothing we can do. Just keep your head down, do your work, save your money, and get out as fast as you can." That night, lying in her small bed, Emma looked at the photo of Miguel. She had called the hospital earlier. He was getting weaker. The doctor said they needed to start the expensive treatment soon, or it might be too late. Emma made a decision. She would stay. She would endure Victoria's cruelty. She would follow the rules and keep quiet. But she wouldn't take off her mother's necklace. Some things were worth fighting for. Thursday morning started like any other day. Emma woke up at 5 a.m., put on her uniform, and tucked her mother's necklace carefully inside her collar where it couldn't be seen. She reported to the kitchen at 5:30 a.m. to help prepare breakfast. At 7 a.m., she started her cleaning duties. She dusted the library, polished the mirrors in the hallway, and helped Ruth change the sheets in 3 of the guest bedrooms. Everything was normal until 2 p.m. inspection time. The servants lined up in the main hallway like always. Victoria came down the stairs like always, wearing a different expensive dress. This one was emerald green and matched her eyes. She inspected each servant. She found fault with almost everyone. "Your hair is messy. Your posture is terrible. Are those wrinkles in your uniform?" Then she got to Emma. Victoria stopped. She tilted her head, studying Emma's neck. "Emma Rodriguez," she said slowly. "Is that what I think it is?" Emma's heart sank. The necklace must have shifted when she bent down to tie her shoe earlier. The tiniest bit of the silver chain was visible above her collar. "Mrs. Blackwood, I gave you a direct order," Victoria interrupted, her voice getting louder. "I told you to remove that necklace. Did I not?" "Yes, but—" "And yet here you are, wearing it anyway." Victoria's eyes flashed with anger. "Do you think the rules don't apply to you?" Emma felt every servant's eyes on her. She knew she should apologize. She knew she should take off the necklace right there and promise never to wear it again. But when she opened her mouth, different words came out. "The necklace was my mother's. She died when I was 10. It's all I have left of her. And it's hidden. It doesn't affect my work." The hallway went so quiet you could hear people's hearts beating. Victoria's face turned red. "How dare you talk back to me?" "I'm not talking back," Emma said, her voice shaking but steady. "I'm just explaining. You're challenging my authority." Victoria's voice was getting shriller. "In my own house, after I gave you a direct order." "This isn't your house," Emma said before she could stop herself. "It's Mr. Blackwood's house." "Oh no." The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just gone off. Sophie made a small squeaking sound. Ruth looked like she might faint. The other servants backed away, as if Emma had suddenly become radioactive. Victoria's face went from red to white to purple. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "What did you just say?" Emma's brain was screaming at her to apologize, to take it back, to run away. But her mouth kept talking. I said this isn't your house. You don't own it. You're engaged to Mr. Blackwood, but you're not married yet. So technically, this is his house, and we work for him, not you. For a moment, just a single moment, Emma saw something flicker across Victoria's face. It looked almost like fear, but then the rage came back worse than before. Get out! Victoria screamed. You're fired. Get out of my house right now. I can't be fired, Emma heard herself say. Only Mr. Blackwood can fire me. He's the one who hired me. Victoria's eyes went wide. Then, before anyone could react, she grabbed the nearest object, a crystal vase full of white roses, and hurled it at Emma's head. That's when we caught up to where our story began. The vase flew past Emma's head, missing by inches, and shattered against the wall. Emma stood her ground, her heart pounding, staring at the woman everyone feared, and said, That was expensive. Mr. Blackwood won't be happy. Victoria took a step forward, shaking with rage. You little! What exactly is going on here? Everyone froze. The voice came from the top of the stairs. It was deep and commanding, a voice used to being obeyed. Emma looked up. Standing at the top of the grand staircase was a man she had never seen before. He was tall, very tall, with dark hair, sharp blue eyes, and a face that would have been handsome if it wasn't so cold and stern. He wore an expensive black suit and looked at the scene below with an expression that gave away nothing. Mr. Blackwood, Victoria stammered. Her entire manner changed instantly. Her voice became soft and sweet. Darling, you're home early. So this was Alexander Blackwood, the billionaire, Victoria's fiancé, the owner of the mansion. He came down the stairs slowly, his eyes moving from the broken vase to Victoria to Emma. I asked what's going on, he repeated. Victoria immediately put on a sad, hurt expression. This new maid, Emma, has been extremely disrespectful. She refused to follow the dress code. She talked back to me. She challenged my authority. Victoria's voice cracked, like she was about to cry. And when I tried to correct her behavior, she said horrible things to me. Mr. Blackwood's eyes shifted to Emma. They were the coldest eyes Emma had ever seen. Like ice. Is this true? Emma felt everyone waiting to see what she would say. If she agreed with Victoria's story, maybe she could keep her job. Maybe Victoria would be satisfied with humiliating her and let it go. But Emma had spent 2 days watching Victoria hurt people who couldn't fight back. She had watched her make them cry. She had watched her enjoy their pain. And Emma was tired of watching. It's partly true, Emma said, lifting her chin. I did refuse to take off my necklace. And I did say this was your house, not hers. Victoria gasped dramatically. You see? She admits it. Mr. Blackwood held up one hand, and Victoria immediately went quiet. His eyes were still on Emma. Why did you refuse to remove the necklace? Emma pulled it out from under her collar and held it up. Because it was my mother's. She died when I was 10. I've worn it every day since then. It's hidden under my uniform. It doesn't affect my work. And Emma paused, then continued. And I don't think it's right to ask someone to give up something that important just because you can. Because I can? Mr. Blackwood's eyebrow raised slightly. Not you, Emma clarified. Victoria. She makes up rules that don't make sense just to have power over people. She's cruel to the servants for no reason. She throws things and breaks expensive items when she's angry. And she acts like she owns everything here when she doesn't. The silence that followed was intense. Victoria was breathing hard, her face twisted with fury. Every servant looked terrified. Mr. Blackwood studied Emma for a long moment. His expression didn't change. You're fired, he said finally. Emma's heart sank. Victoria smiled triumphantly. Yes, exactly. Get her out of. Both of you, Mr. Blackwood finished. Victoria's smile vanished. What? You're both fired. Emma, for insubordination and disrespect. Victoria, for destroying property, creating a hostile work environment, and forgetting that until we're married, you have no authority to make rules in my house. The color drained from Victoria's face. Alexander, you can't be serious. I'm extremely serious. Mr. Blackwood's voice was colder than ever. I've been receiving reports about your behavior toward the staff for months. I chose to ignore them because I was busy with work. But coming home to find you throwing vases at employees, he shook his head. That's where I draw the line. But I'm your fiancée. Victoria's sweet act had completely crumbled. We're getting married in 3 months. That's now under discussion, Mr. Blackwood said flatly. Victoria's face went through shock, disbelief, and fury. Then she turned that fury on Emma. This is your fault, she shrieked. You nobody. You came into my house and ruined everything. It's not your house, Emma said quietly. Victoria let out a sound like a wild animal and lunged at Emma. But before she could reach her, Mr. Blackwood stepped between them. Mrs. Thornberry, he called. The head housekeeper appeared immediately. Yes, Mr. Blackwood? Please escort Victoria to her room to pack her things. She has 1 hour. You can't do this to me, Victoria screamed. Do you know who my father is? Do you know what he'll do to you? Your father and I are business partners, Mr. Blackwood said calmly. I'm certain we can separate business from personal matters. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. He turned to Emma. As for you, you have 30 minutes to pack and leave. Emma nodded. She had known it would end this way. At least she had stood up for herself. At least she had tried. She turned to go up to her room. Wait. She looked back. Mr. Blackwood was studying her with those cold blue eyes. Why did you really do it? You knew you'd be fired. You must have needed this job desperately, or you wouldn't have taken it. So why risk everything for a necklace? Emma thought about Miguel, about the hospital bills, about the fact that she'd just lost her chance to save him. But she told the truth anyway. Because some things are more important than money, she said. And because somebody needed to tell her no. Maybe if someone had done it a long time ago, she wouldn't be the way she is now. Something flickered in Mr. Blackwood's eyes. Not quite approval, but something close to it. Interesting, he murmured. Then louder. Mrs. Thornberry, delay that order. Emma stays. Emma blinked. What? You heard me. You're not fired. But you said. I said you were fired for insubordination. However, I'm now hiring you for a different position. You'll be Victoria's replacement. The entire room gasped. Victoria, who was being escorted up the stairs, spun around. What? Emma will take over your duties of managing the household until I find someone permanent, Mr. Blackwood explained. She's clearly not afraid to speak her mind, which is exactly what I need. Someone to tell me the truth about what's really happening in my own house. He looked at Emma. The pay is triple what you were making as a maid. Are you interested? Emma's mind was spinning. Triple the pay? That was enough to pay for Miguel's treatment and have money left over. But what about Victoria? Emma asked. What about her? Mr. Blackwood replied. She's going to hate me forever. She'll come after me. She'll make my life miserable. Mr. Blackwood's lips curved into something that might have been almost a smile. That, Miss Rodriguez, is a problem I'm very interested to see you solve. Victoria was being dragged up the stairs now, screaming and crying and cursing. Emma could hear things breaking as Victoria tore apart her room in rage. So, Mr. Blackwood asked, do you accept? Emma thought about Miguel, about her mother's necklace, still hanging around her neck, about the fact that, for the first time since her mother died, she had stood up for what was right. I accept, Emma said. Mr. Blackwood nodded. Good. Start tomorrow. And Miss Rodriguez. His cold blue eyes met hers. Don't make me regret this. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Emma standing in the hallway, surrounded by shocked servants, with broken crystal at her feet and a future she never could have imagined ahead of her. Sophie ran over and grabbed Emma's arm. Do you realize what you just did? Victoria Blackwood is going to destroy you. Her family is powerful. Her father is dangerous. She will never, ever forgive you for this. Emma looked up the stairs where Victoria's screams were still echoing. I know, Emma said quietly. But Miguel is getting his treatment. And that's all that matters. Who's Miguel? Sophie asked. Emma smiled for the first time in days. My little brother. And I just saved his life. But even as she said it, even as hope bloomed in her chest, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Victoria Blackwood was not the type of person who accepted defeat. And something told Emma that the real war was just beginning. Emma woke up at 5 a.m., just like always. But this morning felt different. Instead of putting on her simple Maid uniform, she found a beautiful new outfit hanging on her door. A professional gray dress with a matching jacket. There was a note attached in neat handwriting. Miss Rodriguez, please wear this for your new position. Report to my office at 8 a.m. Blackwood. Emma touched the soft fabric. It was nicer than anything she had ever owned. She quickly got dressed, tucked her mother's necklace carefully under the collar, and looked at herself in the small mirror. She barely recognized the person staring back at her. Yesterday she was just a maid. Today she was... what exactly? The manager of a billionaire's mansion? It seemed impossible. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from the hospital. Miguel's treatment is scheduled to begin today. Payment received. Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Blackwood had already sent the money. Miguel was going to be okay. Her little brother was going to live. Whatever happened next, it would all be worth it. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and headed downstairs. The mansion felt different that morning. As Emma walked through the hallways, servants stared at her with a mixture of awe and fear. Some whispered to each other. Others looked away quickly. Sophie caught up with her near the kitchen. Emma, I can't believe what happened yesterday. Everyone's talking about it. Is Victoria really gone? Emma asked. Sophie nodded. She left last night. But Emma... Sophie's voice dropped to a whisper. She was screaming the whole time, saying terrible things. She swore she'd make you pay. She said nobody humiliates Victoria Blackwood and gets away with it. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. I was just standing up for myself. I know, and you were brave. But Victoria's family is one of the most powerful in the country. Her father owns half the businesses in the city. Her uncle is a senator. They have connections everywhere. Sophie grabbed Emma's hand. Please be careful. Before Emma could respond, Mrs. Thornberry appeared. Miss Rodriguez, Mr. Blackwood is waiting for you in his office. Emma followed the head housekeeper through the mansion to a part she had never seen before, the West Wing, where Mr. Blackwood's private offices were located. Mrs. Thornberry knocked on a large wooden door. Come in, said that deep, commanding voice. The office was huge. Bookshelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling. A massive desk sat in front of tall windows that looked out over the gardens. And behind the desk sat Alexander Blackwood, looking at papers with those cold blue eyes. Miss Rodriguez, he said without looking up. Sit down. Emma sat in the chair across from his desk. She folded her hands in her lap to keep them from shaking. Mr. Blackwood finished reading whatever he was looking at, then finally looked up at her. Let me be very clear about something. I didn't hire you because I like you. I hired you because you showed courage yesterday, and because I need someone who will tell me the truth about what happens in this house. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Good. Your job is simple. You'll manage the household staff. Make sure everything runs smoothly. Report any problems directly to me. He pushed a folder across the desk. This contains the staff schedules, the household budget, and the rules for running the mansion. Study it. Emma took the folder. Mr. Blackwood, can I ask you something? What? Why did you really fire Victoria? Was it just because she threw the vase? For the first time, something changed in his expression. Not much. Just a tiny flicker of sadness? Regret? Victoria and I were engaged because our families wanted us to be, he said slowly. It was a business arrangement. I thought I could make it work. I thought. He stopped, then shook his head. It doesn't matter what I thought. The point is, I've been away on business trips for months. I didn't see how she was treating people. I should have paid more attention. You're not responsible for her choices, Emma said quietly. Mr. Blackwood looked at her with surprise. You're very forgiving for someone she tried to hurt. I'm not forgiving. I just know that people make their own choices. You didn't make her cruel. She chose to be that way. He studied her for a long moment. How old are you, Miss Rodriguez? 19, sir. 19. He almost smiled. Almost. And already wiser than most people twice your age. Interesting. He stood up. You can start your duties now. If you have any questions, ask Mrs. Thornberry. Dismissed. Emma stood up to leave, then paused at the door. Mr. Blackwood? Thank you. For the payment to the hospital. For my brother. I have no idea what you're talking about, he said, looking back at his papers. But Emma could have sworn she saw the corner of his mouth twitch upward. She left the office feeling lighter than she had in months. The next 3 days were the best days Emma had experienced since starting at the mansion. She learned her new duties quickly. She met with the kitchen staff to plan menus. She helped organize the cleaning schedules. She made sure everyone had what they needed to do their jobs well. And something amazing happened. The servants started to relax. Without Victoria around to terrorize them, people smiled. They laughed. They worked hard, but they weren't scared anymore. It's like the whole house can breathe again, Sophie said on the third day as they had lunch together. Everyone says you're the best thing that's happened to this place in years. Emma blushed. I'm just trying to be fair. That's exactly it. You treat us like humans, not like servants. You say please and thank you. You ask how we're doing. Sophie grinned. Yesterday you helped Ruth carry those heavy boxes even though you didn't have to. People notice things like that. Emma smiled. She had called Miguel every night, and the doctors said he was responding well to the treatment. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. Too perfectly. On the fourth day, everything changed. Emma was in the garden, checking on the flowers with the gardener, when Mrs. Thornberry came running outside. The older woman's face was white with panic. Miss Rodriguez, come quickly. There's been a situation. Emma ran back to the mansion. When she got to the main hallway, she found complete chaos. Police officers were everywhere. Servants were crying. And in the middle of it all stood a tall man in an expensive suit who looked so much like Victoria that Emma knew immediately who he was. That's her, one of the police officers said, pointing at Emma. That's the girl. What's going on? Emma asked, her heart pounding. The tall man, Victoria's father, Emma realized, stepped forward. His eyes were as cold as his daughter's. Emma Rodriguez, you are under arrest for theft. What? Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. I didn't steal anything. Really? Mr. Blackwood's father pulled out his phone and showed her a video. Then explain this. Emma watched the video in horror. It showed her entering Victoria's old room 3 nights ago, the night Victoria had left. She watched herself on the screen open Victoria's jewelry box, take out a diamond necklace, and put it in her pocket. Except Emma had never done that. She had never even been in Victoria's room. That's not me. I mean, it looks like me, but I never. The security cameras don't lie, one of the police officers said. And we found the necklace in your room, under your mattress. No, someone must have put it there. I didn't. Save it for the station, the officer said, pulling out handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. Emma felt the cold metal close around her wrists. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Wait! Everyone turned. Mr. Blackwood stood at the top of the stairs, his face darker than a storm cloud. Alexander, Victoria's father said with a fake smile. I'm so sorry you had to see this. I know you trusted this girl, but she's clearly a thief. I'll make sure That video is fake, Mr. Blackwood said, coming down the stairs. What? Alexander, I understand you're upset, but I said the video is fake. Mr. Blackwood's voice was like ice. I should know. I had those security cameras removed from that hallway 2 weeks ago because they were old and needed to be replaced. Whatever you're showing me was recorded on a different day and edited to look like that night. Victoria's father's smile slipped. Now, Alexander, let's not be hasty. And even if the video were real, which it's not, that necklace belongs to my house. If anyone had the right to press charges, it would be me, not you. Mr. Blackwood turned to the police. Officers, I'm not pressing any charges. This is clearly a misunderstanding. But sir, the evidence is fake. And if you don't remove those handcuffs from Miss Rodriguez immediately, I will call the police commissioner, who happens to be a personal friend, and tell him that my officers are harassing my household manager based on fabricated evidence. The police officers looked at each other, then at Victoria's father, then back at Mr. Blackwood. They removed the handcuffs. Emma rubbed her wrists, her hands shaking. She had been so close to being arrested, so close to losing everything. Victoria's father's face turned red. This isn't over, Alexander. That girl humiliated my daughter. Your daughter threw a vase at Miss Rodriguez's head, Mr. Blackwood said coldly. Your daughter terrorized my staff for months. Your daughter acted like she owned my house when she didn't. If anyone should be pressing charges, it's me. He stepped closer to Victoria's father. Now, I suggest you leave my house and take your fake evidence with you. For a moment, the two men stared at each other. The tension in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then Victoria's father smiled, a dangerous smile. Fine, we'll do this the hard way. I was going to offer you a way out, Alexander. A way to make this quietly go away. But you've chosen your side. He turned to leave, then looked back. By the way, you might want to check the business news tomorrow. I think you'll find it very interesting. He left, followed by the police officers. As soon as they were gone, Emma's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the floor, shaking. Mr. Blackwood knelt beside her. Are you all right? They almost arrested me. If you hadn't. Emma couldn't finish the sentence. But I did. His voice was gentler than she'd ever heard it. And I won't let them hurt you. That's a promise. Why? Emma looked up at him. Why are you protecting me? I'm nobody. They're powerful. This is going to cause problems for you. Mr. Blackwood stood up and offered her his hand. She took it and he pulled her to her feet. Miss Rodriguez, do you know how I became a billionaire? Emma shook her head. By never backing down from bullies. And by always doing what's right, even when it's hard. He looked directly into her eyes. You stood up to Victoria when everyone else was too afraid. You stood up for what you believed in, even though you knew you'd lose your job. You showed more courage in 5 minutes than most people show in a lifetime. He paused. Why wouldn't I protect someone like that? Emma felt tears in her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This fight is just beginning. Mr. Blackwood turned to Mrs. Thornberry. Double security around the mansion. I want cameras everywhere. If Victoria or her father tries anything else, I want evidence. Yes, Mr. Blackwood. He looked at Emma again. Go rest. You've had a difficult morning. But Emma shook her head. No, I want to work. I want to show them they can't scare me. For the first time since Emma had met him, Alexander Blackwood smiled. A real smile. Stubborn, he said. I like that. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the fake video, about how close she'd come to being arrested. Victoria had tried to destroy her life, and she had almost succeeded. Emma got up and went to get some water from the kitchen. As she walked through the dark hallways, she saw light coming from under Mr. Blackwood's office door. She knocked quietly. Come in. Mr. Blackwood sat at his desk, surrounded by papers. He looked tired. Can't sleep? He asked. No. You either. I'm working. He gestured to the papers. Victoria's father made some calls today. Several of my business partners are suddenly reconsidering our agreements. 3 major deals fell through in the last 6 hours. Emma felt guilty. This is because of me. Because you protected me. No. This is because I ended my engagement to Victoria. They were planning this anyway. Your situation just gave them an excuse to move faster. He rubbed his eyes. But I won't lie to you. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Emma sat down in the chair across from him. Then let me help. Help? How? I don't know yet. But you helped me. Let me help you. Mr. Blackwood studied her. You know, Miss Rodriguez, you're nothing like the people I usually meet. Most people in my world only care about money and power. But you. He paused. You care about people. About doing what's right. It's refreshing. My mother taught me that, Emma said softly. She used to say that money and power don't mean anything if you lose your soul getting them. Your mother was a wise woman. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Emma had an idea. Mr. Blackwood, can I see the contracts that fell through? He looked surprised but pushed some papers across the desk. Emma read through them carefully. She had never gone to college, but her mother had taught her to read carefully and think critically. These companies, Emma said slowly, they all have something in common. What? They all do business with Victoria's father. They probably don't want to drop you. They're being pressured to. Emma looked up. What if we could prove that? What if we could show everyone that Victoria's father is using threats and pressure to hurt your business? Wouldn't that make him look bad? Mr. Blackwood leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. That's actually a good idea. But how would we prove it? I don't know, Emma admitted. But maybe we start by talking to these companies. Maybe some of them would tell the truth if they knew they'd be protected. Mr. Blackwood smiled slightly. You think like a businesswoman, Miss Rodriguez. I think like someone who's had to fight for everything I have, Emma corrected. And I learned that bullies always make mistakes. We just have to wait for Victoria's father to make his. 2 days later, the mistake came. Emma was in the library organizing books when Sophie ran in out of breath. Emma, turn on the TV. Quick. Emma found the remote and turned on the television. A news reporter was talking. Shocking allegations from Victoria Blackwood, daughter of business tycoon Richard Blackwood. Miss Blackwood claims that billionaire Alexander Blackwood has been mentally and emotionally abusive, and that he fired her without cause when she tried to stand up to him. She's calling for a full investigation into his business practices. The screen switched to show Victoria, sitting in an expensive-looking studio, wearing a white dress and crying delicately into a tissue. He completely changed. Victoria was saying, her voice shaking. At first he was kind, but then he became cold and controlling. He wouldn't let me have friends. He criticized everything I did. And when that new girl, Emma, arrived, he became obsessed with her. I think he wanted to replace me with her. Emma's mouth fell open. That's not true. None of that is true. I know, Sophie said. But Emma, people are believing her. Look. Sophie showed Emma her phone. Social media was exploding. Hashtag Justice for Victoria was trending. People were calling Mr. Blackwood a monster. They were saying Emma was a homewrecker. Emma felt sick. I have to do something, she said. What can you do? She's on every news channel. Emma ran to Mr. Blackwood's office. She burst in without knocking. He was watching the news, his face unreadable. Mr. Blackwood, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If I had just... Stop, he said quietly. This is not your fault. Victoria is doing what she always does, playing the victim and manipulating people's emotions. But everyone believes her. Not everyone. He turned off the TV. Miss Rodriguez, do you trust me? Yes. Then trust me now. I have a plan. But I need you to do exactly as I say. The next day, Mr. Blackwood called a press conference. Reporters filled the main hall of the mansion. Cameras were everywhere. Emma stood in the back, her heart pounding, wearing the gray dress Mr. Blackwood had given her. Mr. Blackwood walked to a podium that had been set up. He looked calm and professional, like always. Thank you for coming, he said. I'm here to address the allegations made by Victoria Blackwood yesterday. But before I do, I want to show you something. He nodded to his assistant, who started playing a video on the large screens set up around the room. The video showed Victoria in the mansion, screaming at servants, throwing things, making people cry. It showed her slapping a maid across the face. It showed her laughing as she forced someone to clean with a toothbrush. The reporters gasped. "These are security camera recordings from the past 3 months," Mr. Blackwood said calmly. "As you can see, Victoria Blackwood has been systematically abusing my staff. I ended our engagement because I could no longer stand by and watch her hurt innocent people." The video switched to show the moment Victoria threw the vase at Emma. You could clearly see Victoria's rage and Emma's courage. This young woman, Emma Rodriguez, stood up to Victoria when no one else would. She didn't do it because she wanted power or money. She did it because it was the right thing to do. And for that, Victoria and her father have tried to destroy both of our lives. Mr. Blackwood looked directly at the cameras. "I have proof that Richard Blackwood fabricated evidence to try to have Miss Rodriguez arrested. I have proof that he pressured my business partners to drop their contracts. I have proof that this entire situation has been orchestrated by a family that believes money and power put them above the law." He paused. "But they're wrong. Nobody is above the law. And nobody gets to hurt people I care about." Emma's heart skipped a beat. People he cared about? The reporters started shouting questions, but Mr. Blackwood held up his hand. "I have one more thing to show you." The screen switched to a new video. This one showed Victoria and her father in a car, talking. They must not have known they were being recorded. "Ruin both of them," Victoria was saying. "I'll make up whatever story I need to. People always believe the pretty girl who's crying." Her father laughed. "That's my daughter. Make him pay for choosing that little nobody over you." "Oh, I will. By the time I'm done, Alexander Blackwood will wish he'd never met Emma Rodriguez." The video ended. The room exploded with noise. Reporters were shouting, cameras flashing. Emma could barely breathe. Mr. Blackwood held up his hand again. "I'll take 3 questions. Then I'm done." "Mr. Blackwood," one reporter shouted, "where did you get that recording?" "Victoria's driver," Mr. Blackwood said calmly. "He came forward yesterday. Apparently Victoria hasn't been paying him, and he was tired of being treated badly. Funny how karma works." "What will you do now?" another reporter asked. "I'm filing charges against Richard Blackwood for fraud and harassment. I'm also suing Victoria for defamation. But more importantly," he looked directly at the camera, "I'm setting up a fund to help people who have been abused by employers. Nobody should have to endure what my staff endured. Nobody should be too afraid to speak up because they need a job." "One more question," a reporter called. "What about Emma Rodriguez? What is she to you?" Mr. Blackwood looked back to where Emma stood. Their eyes met across the crowded room. "She's the bravest person I've ever met," he said simply. "And I'm proud to call her a friend." Emma stood in the garden watching the sunset. The past 2 weeks had been crazy. Victoria and her father were facing multiple charges. The videos had gone viral. Public opinion had completely turned against them. Several of their business deals had fallen apart. Meanwhile, Mr. Blackwood's honesty and the video evidence had made him more popular than ever. Companies were lining up to work with him. The fund he created to help abused workers had raised millions of dollars in just days. And Emma? Emma was still the household manager. But more than that, she had become friends with the man everyone thought was cold and heartless. She heard footsteps behind her. "Miss Rodriguez." Emma turned. Mr. Blackwood walked toward her, wearing jeans and a simple shirt instead of his usual suit. She had never seen him look so normal. "You can call me Emma, you know," she said with a smile. "And you can call me Alexander." He stood beside her, looking at the sunset. "How's your brother?" "The doctors say he's responding amazingly well to the treatment. He might be able to come home in a few weeks." Emma's voice got thick with emotion. "I can never thank you enough for that. You already did. You stood up when no one else would." You showed me that I'd been so focused on business that I forgot to see what was happening in my own home. He paused. You made me want to be better. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from orange to purple. So what happens now? Emma asked. Now? Now I focus on my business and making sure Victoria and her father face justice. Now I make sure all my employees are treated fairly and with respect. He looked at her. And now I hope you'll stay on as household manager. Unless you have other plans? Emma thought about it. A month ago, she had been desperate and scared, just trying to save her brother. Now Miguel was getting better. She had a job she loved. She had friends. She had proven to herself that she was brave and strong. And she had helped change a man who everyone thought couldn't be changed. I'll stay, Emma said, on one condition. What's that? You have to promise to keep being the better version of yourself. No going back to being the cold, distant billionaire who doesn't see what's happening around him. Alexander smiled. A real, warm smile that reached his eyes. Deal. And you have to promise to keep being brave. Keep standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. Deal. They shook hands, then both laughed at the formality of it. You know, Alexander said thoughtfully, Victoria was right about one thing. What? I did change. But not because I'm obsessed with you or any of that nonsense she claimed. He looked at Emma seriously. I changed because you showed me what real courage looks like. You showed me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just be kind and stand up for others. Emma felt her cheeks turn red. I just did what anyone should do. But you're wrong. Most people wouldn't have done what you did. Most people would have taken off the necklace, kept their head down and stayed quiet. He shook his head in admiration. But not you. You chose the hard path because it was the right path. My mother used to say that the right path is usually the hardest one, Emma said softly. She raised a remarkable daughter. They watched as the last bit of sun disappeared below the horizon. Stars started to appear in the darkening sky. Emma, Alexander said, can I ask you something? Of course. What made you think I would protect you? When Victoria's father came with those police officers, you could have panicked. You could have confessed to something you didn't do just to avoid trouble. But you stayed calm. You trusted that I would help. Why? Emma thought about it carefully. Because when you fired both of us that first day, you were fair. You didn't take sides just because Victoria was rich and powerful. You looked at the situation and made the right choice. She smiled. And because I saw something in your eyes that day. You weren't as cold as you pretended to be. Perceptive, Alexander murmured. Most people think I'm heartless. Most people only see what you show them. But I've learned that the people who seem the hardest on the outside are often the softest on the inside. They just build walls to protect themselves. And what made you think you could break through my walls? Emma shrugged. I didn't think about it. I just treated you like a human being instead of a billionaire. Sometimes that's all people need. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, you know, my mother would have liked you. Would have. She passed away 5 years ago. Cancer. His voice was sad. She was a lot like you, actually. Kind. Brave. Never afraid to speak her mind. She taught me that money and power don't define who you are. Your actions do. She sounds wonderful. She was. And she would have been proud to see me standing up to the Blackwoods. For years, I've let that family push me around because I thought keeping the peace was more important than doing what's right. He looked at Emma. You reminded me of what my mother always said. Sometimes you have to break the peace to find the truth. Emma smiled. I like that. They started walking back toward the mansion together, the night air cool and fresh around them. So, Alexander said, tell me about Miguel. What's he like? Emma's face lit up. Oh, he's wonderful. He's 7 years old, and he loves dinosaurs. His favorite is the Triceratops. He says it's because they use their horns to protect their families, and that's what he wants to do, protect people. She pulled out her phone and showed Alexander a photo. This was taken right before he got sick. The photo showed a small boy with Emma's same dark eyes and bright smile, holding up a toy dinosaur. "He looks like you," Alexander said. "Everyone says that. He's my world. When our parents died, I promised them I would take care of him." Emma's voice shook a little. "That's why this job meant so much to me. I couldn't let him down." "You didn't let him down. You saved him." Alexander handed the phone back. "And when he's well enough, I'd like to meet him. If that's okay with you." "Really? You want to meet my little brother?" "Of course. Any brother of yours is someone I'd like to know." Emma felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This man, who everyone thought was cold and heartless, was offering to meet her little brother, was offering friendship and kindness when he didn't have to. "Thank you, Alexander," she said softly, "for everything." The mansion was filled with laughter. Emma stood in the garden, wearing a beautiful blue dress, watching Miguel run around with the other children. Her little brother was completely healthy now. The treatment had worked perfectly. His hair had grown back, his cheeks were full and rosy, and he was running and playing like he'd never been sick at all. "Emma! Emma! Look!" Miguel ran up to her, holding something carefully in his hands. "Mr. Alexander gave me this." It was a model triceratops, not a cheap plastic toy, but a detailed, expensive model that looked almost real. "Wow," Emma said. "That's amazing." "He said every protector needs a good triceratops," Miguel said seriously, "because they protect their families." Emma looked over to where Alexander stood, talking with Sophie and Ruth and some of the other staff. He caught her eye and smiled. The past 6 months had been incredible. Victoria and her father had been convicted of fraud. Victoria was doing community service and was banned from coming anywhere near the mansion. Her father had lost several business deals and his reputation was ruined. Meanwhile, Alexander's business had grown stronger than ever. But more than that, he had changed. He spent more time at home now. He knew all the servants by name. He asked about their families. He had even started a scholarship program to help children from poor families. Children like Emma and Miguel go to college. And Emma? She was still the household manager, but she had also become something more. Alexander's friend and advisor. He asked her opinion on business decisions. He invited her to important meetings. He treated her as an equal, not just an employee. "He's different now," Sophie said, coming to stand beside Emma. "Mr. Blackwood, everyone says you changed him." "I didn't change him," Emma said. "I just helped him remember who he really was under all that coldness." "Well, whatever you did, we're all grateful. This is the happiest the mansion has ever been." It was true. The servants no longer walked around in fear. They smiled. They joked. They actually seemed to enjoy their work. All because one girl had been brave enough to say no. Alexander walked over to them, Miguel holding his hand. "Emma, your brother has informed me that triceratops are the best dinosaurs," Alexander said seriously. "I tried to argue for T-Rex, but he made some very compelling points about the tactical advantages of horns." "Horns are better for protecting," Miguel said firmly. "T-Rex just has teeth." "He's got you there," Emma laughed. Alexander smiled. Then he said to Miguel, "Why don't you go show Ruth your new triceratops? She told me she loves dinosaurs too." "Okay." Miguel ran off shouting for Ruth. Alexander turned to Emma. "Walk with me." They walked through the garden together, just like they had 6 months ago after the press conference. But everything felt different now. Easier. Comfortable. "Emma, I've been thinking," Alexander said. "You've been the household manager for 6 months now. You've done an incredible job. Everyone loves you. The house runs smoother than it ever has." Emma felt nervous. Are you firing me?" "What? No. The opposite, actually." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "I want to promote you. I want to make you the chief operations manager of all my properties. Not just this house, but all my houses, all my businesses. You'd be making decisions at the highest level. You'd be my partner in running everything." Emma's mouth fell open. I don't have a college degree. I don't have any formal training. You're just the smartest, bravest, Most capable person I know, Alexander interrupted. College degrees are nice, but they don't teach courage. They don't teach kindness. They don't teach how to see what really matters. He looked at her seriously. I trust you, Emma, more than anyone else in my life. So what do you say? Emma thought about how far she'd come. 6 months ago, she had been a scared maid just trying to save her brother. Now she was being offered a chance to help run a billion-dollar empire. All because she had stood up for what was right. All because she had refused to take off her mother's necklace. Yes, Emma said, her voice strong and sure. I'll do it. Alexander's face broke into a huge smile. Excellent. We'll start the paperwork Monday. And Emma? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I have something else for you. Emma opened the box. Inside was a beautiful silver necklace. Not fancy or expensive, just simple and elegant. The pendant was shaped like a small shield. What is this? She asked. It's a reminder, Alexander said. You protected the people in this house when no one else would. You stood up to bullies. You showed everyone what real courage looks like. He helped her put it on. It hung right next to her mother's necklace. I wanted you to have something to remember that you're a protector, just like Miguel's triceratops. Emma touched both necklaces, her mother's and the new one. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered, for everything, for believing in me, for giving me a chance, for being my friend. Thank you for saving me, Alexander said quietly. I was turning into someone I didn't like, someone my mother wouldn't have been proud of. You reminded me who I really wanted to be. They stood there in the garden, two people who had changed each other's lives, while Miguel's laughter echoed in the background. You know, Emma said, when I came here 6 months ago, I was just trying to save my brother. I never imagined any of this would happen. Life's funny that way, Alexander agreed. Sometimes the hardest moments lead to the best outcomes. My mother used to say, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing even when you're terrified. Your mother was very wise. She was. Emma smiled. And I think she'd be proud of both of us right now. They walked back toward the mansion together, where Miguel was showing everyone his triceratops and the servants were preparing dinner and everything was exactly as it should be. Emma touched her 2 necklaces, one from her mother, one from her friend, and felt completely happy. She had come to this mansion as a nobody, a scared girl just trying to save her brother. But she had stood up when it mattered. She had been brave when it was hard. She had stayed true to herself even when everyone said to give up. And in the end, that had made all the difference. Because sometimes, the smallest person with the biggest heart can change everything. Sometimes, all it takes is one moment of courage. Sometimes, refusing to take off a necklace can change your entire life. And sometimes, just sometimes, the maid can teach the billionaire what really matters.